this is take 2 of this. Full disclosure, internet goes out, gotta start over. So this is Tech Crossover Podcast. And I have 2 lovely guests with me who are being gracious in these technology times, and they're providers, and they're actually doing great work actually on the front lines and all that we're going on. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, guests, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
So my name is Tom. I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner. Thank you, Ben. I work in a family practice, and I see patients and use telehealth and all the other new technology applications that we are all in some ways struggling with, I think. But we have our own podcast called Just On Podcast that Greg was gracious enough to come on and gave us one of our favorite lines. If you gave me enough money, I could put you on the moon tomorrow, which we still use constantly, by the way. Thank you, Greg. I mean, I've been a nurse for a while, but I still consider myself a rookie at a couple of years as a nurse practitioner. So that's me.
And I'm Ben. I'm Tom's co-host on Just Some Podcast. I'm also a board-certified family nurse practitioner.
Words are hard.
Words are hard, which is one of our taglines. So, but yeah, we're working through telehealth, and we have the podcast, and we are in the mid-60s in episodes on that. And like Tom said, Greg was on pretty early on in our run, and so we wanted to return the favor.
And I greatly appreciate that. It was fun doing that. I forgot I said that line. That's a pretty good line.
It is a good line.
It's fantastic. Yes. and honestly, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say, well, this is our first time being a guest on a show. So yes. You are taking our podcast virginity right now, Greg.
Well,
that's what's happening.
Hopefully in the states we live in, it is legal. So we will discuss with legal after the show about this. But
of course,
we'll keep it moving. So
don't touch that.
No, I'm moving on. If you notice in Host 101, moved away from that quickly. We all work in healthcare. I on the technology side, you guys as providers. So we see this from different aspects. But we all kind of intersect because when everything went down, everything first stopped, and then you have to change your whole processes and turn on a dime. So I want to hear from you guys as providers. What did you guys have to do, when you guys realized, oh, this is real, we've got to act now?
For me, it was the realization that when they started shutting down our clinic and opened up a fever clinic to, keep COVID patients away from the family practice clinic, that it was like, well, this is going to be a new reality that we're going to have to work through. And we had been kind of playing a little bit with telehealth, maybe mainly work comp type stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that employers wouldn't have to necessarily bring the employee out. We could just assess them via telehealth and make the determination of what we needed to do from there. And we had been doing that over the last 6 months, but it had never really come to fruition beyond that. And then COVID hit and kind of forced our hand into, here's what we're doing. So I was one of the first providers in our area to start doing telehealth. And
now, are you doing telehealth? And Tom, for you as well, are you guys doing telehealth for just COVID, or are you doing it for anything?
We're doing ours for anything. And honestly, we are trying to do as many visits over telehealth as possible to limit exposure. The state I live in has really embraced the lockdown. And we, when this first came out, we hit that pretty solid. Like, it was literally, I'm going to throw out some days. I don't remember what day. We'll say Tuesday. Everything was business as normal. And then Thursday, there was nobody there. They're like, nope, no more visits until they get screened. Like, it happened right then. And so I am sure I work for a little bit larger health system, and I am sure somebody had been playing with the telehealth, but it had not rolled out to us. So it was I use the analogy of trying to change a fan belt on your car engine while it was still running. Like, they're like, yeah, just do this. I'm like, do what? You have not showed me. I don't know what the login is. And
just do it.
Yeah, just do it. And so that is one of the sorry, clear my throat there. That is one of the things I've actually really enjoyed about this time is we have moved away from everybody being so worried about every little detail. Now it's just, I don't know, do something, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, man, that is so much better. That is a way better mindset, and it's a more fun work environment because you don't have to worry about, oh, I didn't sign a triple copy of this form to get whatever. They're just like, just do something. We'll figure it out later. And that's kind of how they rolled out the telehealth. I don't want to mention any names, so like the services we're using. I don't think we have the user friendliest telehealth. So that's one of the things that Ben and I have talked about off air, and I'd be glad for us to talk about it on this, show.
Mm-hmm.
The differences in all the different technologies. Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of cool things I can do, but I am more limited by what I can do with my system than, for instance, maybe what Ben can do with his. And so I find that's what a lot of providers, that's what we're talking about is, oh, you can do that. Well, maybe I can figure out how to do that with my service. And we're trying to all work together to make this better for the patients.
Yeah, and I think that's that's got to happen because this telehealth's been around for a few years, and in our facility, we were flirting with it for a couple of years, and then this happens, and it's like, flirt no more. It's time to go out, buy dinner, get the glass of wine, and take it to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to do the whole thing right, and you got to do it like in a day.
Yeah.
So we did it, and I'm not going to name the name of the system that we used. It was not our main EMR. It's a different system we used for, but it's the ability of the like in our urgent cares, our nurse practitioners can have it up on one screen, EMR on the other, and they can document on the fly, order, prescribe, and go. Yeah. And basically all it is for them is it's like a Zoom call, basically.
Yeah.
But it's HIPAA compliant, and it's it's all encrypted, 256. All that stuff is done on the back end, and we built the charges so we can charge the patient and all that kind of stuff. Because let's be real, you gotta charge them. I mean, we're not doing it for free.
Yeah.
So, but and then you can hear from you on your telemedicine story. Because before this, we were talking about you are doing telemedicine now. So, how well is it integrated, or is it not integrated, or how do you like using it? Do you like seeing people in person, or is the telehealth kind of more flexible?
Telehealth is definitely more flexible, and I think as we move out of this wave of COVID into whatever the new normal of life is going to be, I think it'll be interesting to see how much insurance companies embrace it moving forward. Because telehealth was something that we could use. It was used a lot in mental health, and it was used from like our office to like a specialty office. We could telehealth with, say, an oncologist or whatever the case may be, but it was never to go from the office to the patient's home. And once COVID hit and CMS rolled out this new guideline saying, yes, we can do this. Yes, you're going to get paid for it. And then all the insurance companies embrace that as well, like they always do when they follow CMS. But it's nice that I can see a patient who, say, is a UPS driver. He gets a notification on his phone, hey, it's time for your visit. He can pull over. We can do our visit. And 5-10 minutes and he's back on his way. He's not taking a half a day off work. He's not taking a full day off work. So I think that patients will enjoy it more. I think employers will appreciate it more. And, are there things that definitely need to be seen in person? Absolutely. I can't assess lung sounds. I can't assess, heart sounds, anything like that. But a lot of what we do certainly can be done via telehealth, and generally can be done a little bit quicker because we're not, as Tom kind of alluded to earlier, we're not, we're kind of cutting through all the red tape and all the BS, and it's just taking care of the person.
So I think it'll stay around And for my visits that are, oh, you've been on a blood pressure medication, how's it been going? You know, for a lot of that stuff, it's been great. And like Ben said, it's much easier on the patient. The two things, hiccup wise, that I consistently seem to run into is one, the population we're trying to protect the most seem to be the least able to function in the technology world. So that's always like, oh, you have to push this button, ma'am, you know, or something to get through, you know. Two is same thing he just talked about is, unfortunately, we have people that are like, well, I don't want to come in, but my kid has an earache. I'm like, well, how am I going to see that over, you know? So that tends to be the biggest hiccup for me is either people are overreaching on technology or they are not able to utilize it. And for me on the patient side, that seems to be the biggest issue.
And I'm glad you brought the overreaching point, because I've been asked about, hey, if person has an for example, earache, can it be assessed? Well, no, something like that can't be assessed. We're not there yet. Now, there's prototypes for that stuff out in the world, but for wide use, we're way away from that. You know, let me say this now. Telemedicine is great. I think personally it's here to stay. I think it'll be more prevalent if insurance companies, so if people don't know, right now insurance companies are, and CMS, Medicare, is allowing charging to be almost at the same level as a visit for telemedicine. Now, they can go back and reduce the charging after the whole COVID-19 thing is over. People are saying they may not do that. If they don't, it's going to be everywhere. And it's going to be great. I mean, you'll see retail kiosks up all over the world, or the country at least, where you can go up, pay a cash rate or have your insurance, see a provider, get prescribed something, and go about your business, like Tom said with the UPS driver. But it's going to be based on if the money makes sense.
It is, but unfortunately, and I wonder how Ben feels. There are certain things, though, I need the patient there. I have to manipulate their arm. I have to look in their ear. You know, there are certain things that, unfortunately, the population is like, well, I'll just have my doc look at it. I'm like, well, that sounds great, but I actually need you here. The one thing that we've been doing is, if that comes up, like, let's say a chest x-ray, you have a bad cough and somehow you got on telehealth where I can't listen to your lung sounds. We'll go through your whole visit, and then I'll say, this is what I'm ordering. Just come in, fulfill that part of the order, and we'll go through with the rest of the visit. So we are trying to mix and match as much as possible. But again, there are those grand limitations that you're going to run into.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing where if someone needs lab, chest x-ray, the provider can order it right then, and they just show up and say, hey, I've got these orders. Oh, we see it right here. Come right on. You don't have to wait. Go straight back, get everything done, execute it, and then we'll call you if something's elevated and tell you what the next steps are for you. But yeah, so I think telehealth is a great thing. It's helping us get through this. I mean, there's other technologies like I'm looking at, actually have a call tomorrow about the for people walking into our hospital, the digital thermometers where you walk through and it's a heat map. And if it's above a certain temperature, we can flag you.
That's cool.
For both employees, patients, for everybody. So you walk through, airports are looking at it too around the world. I think there's a couple in Europe that already have installed them, but you walk through the door, it's not x-rays. Don't worry. It just sees temperature, and it's calibrated every morning. So anything above 100, it's going to flag us and say that person is above 100, and we can either further test them or tell them they need to leave and go follow up with their PCP or something else like that, or go get tested. So that's kind of, it's kind of cool. Having to put all this in place on the fly is not the best from a technology perspective. You want time to kind of vet it out, but it's, hey, do this yesterday. Well, okay.
It's not the best, but it's a lot of times I think that's kind of how we work, technology wise. I mean, this problem has presented itself. There are new ways to address that now, and So we're going to, push through and do that, and then we'll kind of reassess as we go. I think it is, I've often said to several people in the office, I'm like, we live in the 21st century. It's time we should probably start acting like it. Things like telehealth, things like, thermometers at the door that can just kind of scan you as you go through. That's all stuff that we should have had probably in place years ago. And it's just, we've kind of, particularly in medicine, we've kind of drug our feet. And, there's still offices out there that are paper charting.
Oh, yeah.
So it's time that we start practicing healthcare like we are in the 21st century.
Well, it's amazing. It's I equate this whole situation to, like, I am from the Southeast, Katrina. When Katrina happened, and 15 years ago now, wow. The warning signs were there. Levees weren't working. Everyone knew. Army Corps of Engineers said this wasn't going to work, and then it took something to happen to say, "Oh no." I've been doing this for 13, 14 years now. You guys have been doing this for a very long time. I can tell you where the gaps are. I've told people where the gaps are. Now something like this happens and we can see the gaps. You can actually see on the fly what needs to be corrected. And I guess it's kind of crummy in the midst of it, but when you take a step back, it's kind of good because now I can go to administrations and boards and say, hey, look, this is the problem. Here's the issue we've had. And here's the thing. I've explained this issue. As providers, you can tell your financial people, technical people, anybody, your administration, hey, here's where our gaps are. Here's what's keeping me from seeing more patients. You want me to see more patients? This is why, be it a charting issue or a telehealth issue or whatever, operation-wise. So that's the kind of the plus side to all this. So I wish this thing never happened. I wish there was no pandemic. Trust me.
Right.
Correct.
Man, if you're pro-pandemic, turn it off right now. Let's go. If you are pro-pandemic, go do something else.
Yeah.
And if you're pro-pandemic, you waited 100 years. What were you doing?
You had a lot of time on your hands.
Yes, sitting there with Mr. Burns' fingers. Yes. But it's, if there's any silver lining, I think going forward in the medical realm of things, and not even the medical realm, I think in restaurants now, because we order to go now, they've gotten so much more efficient with things to go. Like I ordered a sandwich a couple days ago. I went on the computer, I drove in, picked it up, it was ready, picked it up, walked out the door. Fantastic.
Well, and that seems to be a lot of areas of life, though. Nobody wants to do anything until they're pushed. Like, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody knows there's a problem. Like, highway systems, who knows? There's a lot of issues that would go everyday life. Somebody goes, why don't they fix that? It's because we haven't had to. And now in healthcare, we're having to. And I also think not only is that part of our overall culture, but particularly in medicine. I know that it is very much, well, this is how I was trained. So this is how I'm training you. And even if that's an old school idea, it sticks around, and that just becomes the fashion in which we practice. Mm-hmm. And so now that we can't do that, we are finally, stimulated to move forwards with those new ideas. So telemedicine might have been around, and there might have been small pockets practicing it, but this was that shove that said, okay, well, now you don't have a choice. And people, we will adapt. Mm-hmm. But we had to have that, input that said, you can't do the old. You have to do the new. And even though I agree, it's terrible, I hope, as terrible as this is, and I think we will, that we will gather that good out of this. Like, we will take these lessons forwards and make better out of this.
Yeah. Oh, and I think you're 1,000% correct, Tom.
Most people do. Thank you. So.
Don't tell him things like that.
You knew better. But yeah, I think we need to take the good, if anything, take the good out of everything and realize where we went wrong, and because I don't think it's a hot take to say that there was fumbles and missteps at a federal, state, local level, public sector, and private sector.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Everybody.
It was a cascade effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And honestly, you can tell that again. If anybody ever has a question, you could tell that and just say, look. You can say, look what Taiwan did and South Korea did versus what we did. Mm-hmm. And then if they say, okay, well, you can't compare those. Okay, well, then look what Ohio did versus Louisiana. And you can instantaneously see differences. And so you're right. I think there was a lot of fumbles, and hopefully those fumbles lead to people going, what happened right? Let's build on that. I hope it's not all negative. I mean, you have to learn from negatives.
Yes.
Getting punched in the face is a good way to learn not to get punched in the face again. But hopefully we can say, hey, you know, Greg had a great idea. Ben had a great idea. We need to build on those great ideas and move forwards. And I hope that's what we continue to do from this point forward. Because it seems like that's what's happening. We're just picking up the ball and running.
Yeah.
And I just hope that mentality stays versus as soon as this calms down a little bit, everybody just doesn't settle back into their chair and go, okay, well, back to normal. Because then what was the point?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. I kind of want to shift a little bit and talk as practitioners in technology and your social media accounts, because I know you guys have probably been blown up with all these questions about, I got a runny nose. Do I have the corona? You know, and it's bad. You know, I get some questions. I get questions about, you know, well, why is this not technology stuff? But I can imagine the things you've been hit with. What's the weirdest question? Don't name names. I mean, you want to name names. That's on you. But what's like the weirdest question you guys have gotten from social media about all of this?
I think for me is either A, and it seems to fall very roughly into these two categories. A, they are worried about COVID and things that may precipitate worsening of symptoms. But when I asked them, okay, they're like, okay, we'll take NSAIDs. So everyone's like, I can't take ibuprofen. And I'd be like, why? Well, it makes COVID worse. Okay, so do you have COVID? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, then why are you not taking ibuprofen? So it's like a complete lack. The fear knocked out the ability to think rationally about what was happening. I was like, were you around anybody with COVID? No. Well, then you don't have to worry about it. We got to worry about it when you are starting to show symptoms. The second thing, and this is the big thing for me, God, it is literally an hourly thing almost, is people with conspiracies. That's the biggest thing on social media is I saw a video on YouTube that this is Big Pharma out to get us, or Bill Gates is orchestrating a new world order, and they have all these theories, and I just have to sit there and talk to them. Now, to be fair, unlike other conspiracy theories pre-COVID, where people just had their notion. That's how it was, and there was no point in talking to them. I have found a lot of these people have just heard it, and they want someone to confirm or deny it. And that has been helpful.
Yes.
Because you can at least go, if you're asking me on my opinion, that generally means you still have an open mind about it. And so I can go, no, that doesn't make sense. Here's why. Here's the information. And they go, oh, okay. But, I mean, there are some that are just, nah, bro. This is a weapon of mass destruction. I'm like, oh, Lord. So that's been my biggest two things on social media.
I know people in healthcare who have said conspiracy theories, and in my head, I'm like, what? Like the Bill Gates one. Someone told me about, Bill Gates. I'm like, okay, first off, any piece of technology you're using, he had probably something to do with it. Yeah. And also, if he wanted information, he already had it a year ago.
Yeah, easily.
That's what I think people need to realize when they use a Facebook or Instagram. I'll say, any information you don't want to give up. Now, there's certain settings you can turn some things off. But if they want it, they already have it. Like, it's out there. All of our stuff's out there.
And I wanted to say this, and then I want to hear, because I know me and Ben have talked about it, he's got some good ones too. But I actually listened to another podcast where they had a CIA officer on. Like legit, this wasn't like he was a legitimate CIA officer. And he openly said what you just said. He was like, people are worried about the CIA and the government watching you. They're not watching you. You need to worry about Google. Like that's who's watching you.
Yeah.
Like if you are worried about someone spying on you, it's Samsung and Google. It ain't the CIA.
Because
so
those like you say, those companies don't have regulation. A, B, or they're not based in the United States, so you can't govern over them the certain same way. So like a Samsung, they're out of Korea. They can do what they want.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
they have a monetary incentive to have that information.
Yes,
the government. People don't realize how the government works, and I'm not going to bug them on your podcast about it, but there's no use. Like, they don't care. Unless they're tracking you for a reason, they don't care.
Yeah.
People think that there's some guy in a shirt and tie in a cubicle spying on them. I'm like, no. But Google and Amazon, they do want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a reason. So that's who you need to be worried about.
They want to know all the trends. I mean, and they know a lot of the trends. I mean,
absolutely.
Without that, Google is excellent at that kind of thing. Facebook is really good at that. Like, for people listening, they already know everything. Like, you post on Facebook, they know everything about you backwards and forwards. So
they know what you buy. They know why you buy it. They direct target ads at you. That's why whenever you Google something and then 30 minutes later you're scrolling Facebook, you get this ad from this company saying the exact same thing that you were just looking for. That's
it's not a coincidence.
No, it's not. No, it is. It's very smart people doing very smart things for money and lots and lots of money.
Lots of money.
I tell people all the time that Woodward and Bernstein, when they did Watergate, Carl Woodward and Bernstein, follow the money is what they said. That's what they did with water. Just follow the money. If you follow money and where it tracks, that kind of leads you to a lot of the answers. I loved the 5G conspiracy theory. The Microsoft one is another one that's just like, mwah. Like to think of this stuff, it's just beautiful.
Well, not only to think of it, but then to pull out small snippets, like one sentence of something that was said in a TED Talk somewhere, and then spin an entire conspiracy about it. And then people buy into it so hard. And I think it's like I told Tom before on our show, I think people are trying to apply logic to an illogical situation. And so they're just trying to look for an answer. Mm-hmm. And so they see this conspiracy theory and they go, oh, wow, that makes sense. Yeah. Because it's providing an answer to the unanswerable. Yeah. And like Tom said, a lot of it is, and I get a lot of messages saying, hey, watch this and tell me what you think. Is this legit? Is this not? And I will engage with those people because it's worth it, because I can discuss with them, hey, no, here's why this is, not legit. Other than that, it's a lot of just, hey, I have, runny nose. Is this a problem? I finally got asked about hydrochloroquine the other day, and if I would prescribe that to a patient, and I explained that I would not, and the reasons that I would not. Mm-hmm. The probably the best one that I had that was actually legitimate. I had a nurse contact me from a residential home, like a group home, mm-hmm. and she said, "Hey, one of your patients is on like albuterol breathing treatments. Would it be willing? Can we switch that to the inhaler instead of the breathing treatments? Because the breathing treatments, if they were to have COVID and not know it, the breathing treatment actually aerolizes the potential virus.
Yes.
Whereas the inhaler will not. So I was like, you know what? That's legitimate. Yeah, that's something we really do need to do. We need to take them off of the nebulizer for the time being, just in the off chance that they would have COVID and not have symptoms. And they're not aerolizing the virus potentially. So there has been some good come out of it. Some of it like I told Tom on our show, I've learned the snooze button on Facebook, so you can snooze someone for 30 days, and that's been most helpful to clear my feed a little bit. And the sad thing is that social media is a double-edged sword, because for as much conspiracy and BS and stuff that's out there, there's also, that's the way that we get information now. That's the way that we pass information on to people now. That's why we do live Facebook feeds on our show, so that we can answer questions, and we get a lot of the same questions and we address them. But so you had to kind of balance the good and the bad with it. You're like, yes, there's a bunch of conspiracy BS and crap that we have to deal with, but it's also the way that we reach a large number of people.
And like I said, I truly enjoy actually talking to the individuals that they want to know. Like, they have not made up their mind. I will talk to them all day long. It's the ones that are like, you're covering this up. I'm like, okay. Like, I have, see, he is nice and he's just been snoozing people. I have just straight been deleting people. Well, first I troll them and then I delete them.
Yeah.
So that's what I like to do.
I just went on my phone while Ben was talking. I wanted to see how far down would it take me to get to a conspiracy theory. nine posts. I went the first 9 and I'm number 10, and there's a conspiracy theory. I was like, come on. And it's not even a good one at that. Like, it's a bad thing. I'm not gonna get into it, but it's a So I
my first one.
Heck.
Well, Tom's gotta look now.
Yeah.
First one. Yeah.
First one.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
And the problem is, sometimes these conspiracy theories are shared by people in healthcare, even.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that would be like a mechanic sharing something, like a mechanical conspiracy theory. And not that they initially have one, but you're looked at as an expert. And so when you share that, then people assume that you're an expert in this, even though you may not know what the hell you're talking about at all.
So I have tried to explain thoroughly to people that there are jerks in every field. And just because they're a nurse, a PA, an NP, a physician, does not mean they're not a jerk. So you're going to get some of those false informations from the trusted sources, which makes our job harder, which is why I like them the least. But going back to Double-Edged Sword, I went down, by the way, it was my 5th. My 5th one was this YouTube video about the pandemic, which is, I don't know if I should say conspiracy, but false information. We'll put it.
And I think that's a good thing. There's conspiracy and then there's just outright false.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I kind of lumped those two together because they're both defeating. One is planting the idea that it's worse than it is, and one is just making our job harder. But they're both misinformation, so I lumped them together. But going back to what Ben said about this being a double-edged sword, I would say some bright points is the third post was actually, it's from a nurse, and it's about some of the about some of the intelligent things that South Korea did to try and fight coronavirus and things that we can do here. And I was like, see, this is exactly what Ben was talking about, is there's the good information with literally a post later, the bad. And so that's why I like talking to people. I like the mini episodes we've been doing and what we're doing with you right now. It's trying to get out some good information that someone can listen to and go, okay, here's what we need to do and how to go forward. So it's quite a quagmire we got going on here dealing with all this stuff, though.
I try to tell as many people, if the source is not from someone you've never heard of before, like if you see a story and the Washington Post or a major network says it, okay, it might be some truth to that because they have to check and recheck and vet their stories. If it's from a website that you never knew existed until right then,
yes.
Let's not do that.
I've said this 3 times a day. I said, if YouTube is your source of information on this, then you need a new source of information.
Yes.
That's not to say that someone that's reputable can't post on YouTube, but you know who that person is.
Yeah.
Like, you knew who they were going into it. Yeah. If YouTube just suddenly pops up with a doctor, which may or may not even be a doctor at this point, is putting out a video, you're like, you might want to double check what's going on with this.
It's funny. I know you guys saw it. I think you guys may talk about it on your podcast. I listened. The chiropractor out of Missouri.
Yes.
So me and my wife, one morning, I get up and I hear this and this is when the shutdowns happen. I hear him. Hear him ranting on about some BS, and as I'm listening, I'm like, wait a minute, he's a doctor. So I get up, I'm listening, I'm still listening. Then he says the key word, which no shade right here. He says chiropractor. No shade to chiropractors. They do good work. No shade at all. One question I would have for him: when have you prescribed the medication? That's the only thing I want to ask him.
Like, when have you taken care of an infectious disease?
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm not clinical, so I am not Dr. Anything. Trust me. Some may say Dr. Feelgood. That's boy. Is she here? No, she isn't.
Yeah, exactly. But look around. Look around.
I was saying she comes in and hits me in the head. No, but when have you prescribed any medication? Now, what you do is probably good work. I'm not discounting that. But and that goes to that whole narrative of false information. He went on for 18, 20 minutes, and none of it made sense.
Well, but see, here's the kicker to that one, too. And something that, I tell people frequently. If someone is telling you that there's a cure for this, whatever it is, let's not even put it in the COVID bubble, just in general. And then they happen to sell that same cure, they're probably full of shit. I mean, it's just...
Or, hey, this is how you get rid of toxins. And then you say, what toxins? And they can't name one toxin.
All of them.
Yeah.
The toxins.
Yeah, that's a problem. Because I always want to say, that's what your liver does anyways, right? Like, that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
So, it goes back to the same thing that people they're grasping. And so this person, again, like you said, if I had to adjust someone's back, I would say, you need to go to a chiropractor. I have no problem with that. Yeah. The analogy I use with my patients is mechanics, weirdly enough, because that's what Ben brought up earlier. I was like, if you drove a Ferrari, could a mechanic at your Ford shop work on it? He probably could. I mean, it's got some components, but you want a Ferrari mechanic, right? Exactly. So in the realm of infectious diseases, I want to hear from the infectious diseases. Like, I want to deal with those guys, so that tends to be one of the in the technology world, these guys are just blasting information, and people hear something and they're like, that's what I want to believe. And that's the problem is they're unwilling to use a critical eye because it may not be something they want to hear. And so that's how these guys are just propagating their message over and over and over is, I'm going to tell you something you like. And it's not that you have to worry about getting this. It's because someone is going to make you get it. And then people are like, oh, that's why grandma got sick. Yeah. Well, it's because someone did it to her. Well, no.
And then you even need to remember, looking at the two physicians that are from an urgent care in California.
I was going to mention that,
They come out with this video about, it's all the hype and yada, yada, yada. I don't know that I have ever seen two national organizations
competing
come out specifically and ostracize these two physicians because they're basically saying they have a financial interest in it. They are trying to draw business. Yeah. So it goes back to the chiropractor selling the vitamin water or whatever the hell he was selling. They're trying to draw business, and so, but people just get enamored by it because they said they're a doctor.
Yeah, and that was and when I saw that video, I was like, that's a cash grab. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And once the news reporter said they own, I'm like, oh, this is a cash grab. This is all. This is straight cash. I honestly don't think they believe what they're saying. They just are looking at the books and saying we need patients, and that's. Yeah. I hope people don't go into medicine thinking, look, I know it's a business, and I know you got to run a business. You have to have money. You have to have margins. I own a business. I understand that. But if you go into, as a physician, they're MDs. You go into it and then say, oh, well, let's put this out there in the ether just so that we can improve our bottom line, knowing this may affect somebody. That's also, too, those organizations to move that quickly was like record time.
Oh, yeah.
That was record time for them.
Yeah. Well, first do no harm. That is literally the basis of everything we're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
And I take that to heart because there's plenty of times I tell patients, like, I need to look this up more before I do this because I want to make sure we do the right thing. I am the first one to say I don't know everything all the time. Okay, like sure, if you have a cough, we got a pretty good understanding of what we're going to do next. But someone comes to you with something you've never seen, I will step back and say, hey, this is the plan right now, but I'm going to do some more research because I want to make sure we do what's best for you.
Yep.
And clearly these two guys extrapolated some information and twisted it to suit their needs. And as you two said, I don't want to say competing organizations, but separate organizations got together to issue a joint statement saying these guys are full of it. Wow. It's just not something you see.
Yeah. So I think to kind of close the subject out, it's just I wish people would stop would take time and really not just hear what they're trying to hear, but listen and not try to propagate false information. It's a scary time. I understand that, but there are people out there who are infectious disease physicians who have been doing this for their lives, who you can listen to. Listen to most likely your local professional will tell you the right thing. Your primary care physician, whoever will tell you the right thing. We're talking about small people here, but those small people have a big voice now because of technology, because they can hop on YouTube for 20 minutes or Facebook Live, and then it gets spread amount, oh, I saw this, and I'm going to spread it out to everybody. And then that's it, and it's sickening from a technology standpoint because, like you said earlier, all the good of Facebook, it's like you have this other side that's just like frustrating. Yep. And you just want to tell people stop, just stop.
I know you want to close out, but I just thought of this. The ultimate technology theft of money on this was a televangelist who was telling people if they sent him money, and I don't remember what the number was, if they touched the TV screen while he was talking, that he could heal their COVID.
I know who this was. I'm going to name names. Kenneth Copeland, it was him.
Okay, there you go.
There's a video, and we'll see. I might try and splice this in, the audio of him saying he's going to blow COVID, and he blows it out.
Yes, I've seen that.
You saw? Okay, I'm not making this up.
I couldn't think of his name. That's why I didn't say
Kenneth Copeland, side note, and he's been grifting people for 50 years now. Side note, he's worth like $800 million.
Yeah. And how much is he giving to COVID? COVID relief.
He blew it away. He doesn't need.
He literally blew it away. If it's not in this audio,
yes.
I will. If it's not audio, I will link it, and you guys, everyone out there needs to go listen. It's remarkable. But
COVID-19. I blow the wind of God.
So how come the federal government needs to? You know what? Need to watch. They're watching us. Watch him. How's he doing this?
Yeah. Well, they did with Baker. He was selling the colloidal silver, and they said stop. Well, the state of New York did.
It wasn't federal. It was a state.
Yeah, state of New York did. But that is to show, though, where you're at can make an impact. Like I said, my state has done well. I think overall your two states have done well. I think you guys are maybe opening a tad soon, but that's your guys' like, hey, where I'm at, nah, this is full Tiger King cage right here, baby. We're not moving nowhere.
Yeah.
But that goes back to, like you said, technology's got its good and its bad. And now I would say, though, that's the first time I've seen, or I've heard of anyways, a direct link of technology to healing COVID was if you touch the screen. I was like, goodness sakes.
And people did it. That's the amazing thing. People.
They want to believe.
Money. Yeah. It's just like.
But Bill Gates, who donated billions of dollars, he must be the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
When he blew that, I literally laughed. I think I was drinking some coffee. I spit my coffee out because I was just like, he just blew. So he got rid of COVID-19 by blowing. All right, Briggs, Fauci, go home. You're done. Copeland, you're in. Just,
There you go.
Done. What's on TV tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. Getting back with practitioners and providers and technology, how do you guys chart an EMR? Because when I was on your show, you guys took me to task with EMR, rightfully so. So I'm giving you guys another chance. I've got some whiskey here. That's why I'm doing this.
Good for you. Good choice.
Like, as far as charting this stuff, how quickly have you guys made any adjustments when charting this, or is it kind of you chart as normal and then put in there if there's possibility for COVID, or is there a different section? How have you guys done that kind of thing?
For us personally, we have we built a kind of a telehealth template that would address kind of the things that we needed to address. And the biggest thing, at least from an insurance standpoint, because, you know, it goes back to getting paid, is it has to specify that it is a video conferencing. So basically it's like a Zoom call, you know, so I can see the patient, I can hear the patient, and then make a notation that it's a telehealth visit. And beyond that, a lot of it's charting very similar to what we chart now. Obviously my physical exam is a little bit different in my note because I'm only talking to them. So I'll make a notation in my physical exam that I've seen them via telehealth, and whatever, you know, if it's a rash, I'll make a notation of that. If it's mental health, because I'm doing a lot of mental health stuff now via telehealth, I can, you know, patient appeared to be dressed appropriately, patient answered questions, patient made good eye contact, whatever the case may be. So at least I'm backing up some of that beyond just, I talked to them for 30 seconds and moved on.
Same thing. We have a telehealth template to address some of the basics and make sure that those are covered. That says I have to fill in some of the blanks, but it says I spent X amount of minutes. We discuss, you know, these things, et cetera, to cover it. As far as charting wise for exam, though, it's exactly what Ben said. It also depends, you know, obviously in person or not, but when it's over the telehealth, it's what can I relay accurately in my exam. So the person didn't seem out of breath while speaking to me. They were, you know, alert and oriented, et cetera. But that's the limitation of the telehealth, is because that's kind of where it stops. I can't say, well, he had, you know, clear auscultation of both lungs. I'm like, oh, that's kind of the crappy part. I have made sure, and I usually did it anyways, depending on what the complaint was. But especially now with COVID, even in-person visits, I try to make sure that I am, like, they are free of fever, they're free of nausea, cough, you know, et cetera, to kind of cover all those bases. So if ever at some point they want to link it back, I can say, whoa. At this date and this time, they denied, you know, fever, cough, nausea, et cetera. So that's not something I did all the time in the beginning, but now it's a little more cognizant of, let's make sure that base is now covered in the EMR, so that it's also for a useful tracking tool. So if I could say on Thursday they didn't have a cough, but now Saturday they do have a cough, we can narrow that timeline down to that 48 hours, what happened in that 48 hours, because they may not have had symptoms previous. So it's a helpful tool both ways.
Yeah. And we've got, go ahead.
I was just saying that our telehealth is not integrated with our EHR, and I don't know that I would want it to be.
Yeah, ours is not either.
Neither
just because the EHR company is fairly good at creating an EHR. The company that we use seems to be fairly good at creating a telehealth platform. I don't know that I want the EHR company trying to rush some crap out to say, oh, no, we have this ability now, and it not work as well as what we're using now. You know, I see the patient, I just keep a little scratch pad at my desk, and I'll put down the patient's initials and then whatever symptoms we're talking about, and then I'll go back in and chart later. That's what works for me. And but yeah, I definitely would not want to see them integrated personally.
I wouldn't want to see them integrated now on the fly. If it was like, I've heard rumors for a long time, heck, I think we talked about when Greg was on the show, like Amazon coming out with an EMR or something like that. If they have already had that built in, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, whoever was building the CMR, they had that planned ahead. Maybe that's something we could play with.
Yeah.
But I don't want my companies. I'd rather have two good separate quality products than one half-ass product. And that's where I'm at. I have the option where I can minimize one of the screens and make some notes, but the patient can still see me. So if they have any questions, I say, hey, just so you are aware, I'm making some notes. I type a little bit, bring my screen back up, etc. So, I mean, and I've done the scratch pad. It's just easier for me to go click, 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 click.
Well,
bring them back up.
For me personally, it's quieter if I'm handwriting it as opposed to typing, because typing can be somewhat loud, and then we're already in a environment where my camera is picking up my mic. It's not like this where we have legitimate microphones. I'm using, either the built-in mic off the computer or the HD or the mic off the camera. And so, clicking and hearing all this, click, click, click is going to take away from the actual visit personally. Yeah. So that's why I don't do that.
Well, and again, that's one of those, I try and make my patient aware, like, hey, just so you know, you're going to hear a little bit of typing. It's just me making a couple notes. And then I just put very basic information down, and then I flesh out the note more later. Which that, I guess, would be another thing that has slowed me down about this whole process, is the use of templates and being very quick during a visit, versus now I can only use I put in a couple keywords, denies this, positive this. That's pretty much all I'm getting down. And then later on I have to go out and refill my entire note sometimes. And so it's like I'm charting twice. And so that has really slowed that process down. I can't do as many charts in a day now because I've had to basically go back and do the same chart twice. And that's been kind of a hiccup, but I'm sure it's more of a speed bump than an obstacle.
Yeah. And I think, so where I'm at, we have dual monitors, so they can do patient on one screen and have EMR on the other, so they can just kind of, and they tell them, hey, you may hear some typing. As far as, now, Ben, that's a good point with the microphone and stuff. We got them, Office Depot sold them, USB headsets with microphones. Like, I think they're like $12, and that reduced the amount of ambient noise because it's only coming from that one spot now. And you literally just popped it in, and as long as Windows saw it, because we had that same problem where the camera was picking up the ambient, and you would hear people talking, walking by, all kind of stuff. Pop that in, it kind of gives them a more intimate feel to kind of combat that. But that is a good point that you brought up with the microphone. So
we are issued laptops. That's primarily what we use in our office. So we actually go into a room. So I'll be like, hey, room 4 is occupied for a little while, if it's going to be a little more in depth, which is what we usually do. So we are actually sequestered away from everybody when we're doing our telehealth. So now, granted, if I had a built, or desktop unit with 2 monitors, I would absolutely opt for the headphones and doing it that way. But since we don't have that option, and like I said, we pretty much did this on the run, we just chose a service where we could just do a service over our laptops that was secure. And so to try and keep that privacy for the patient, we actually go into a patient room that's not in use and do it there.
Yeah, and that works. It's with practicing medicine, physicians I've known, and everyone does it a little differently. I mean, as long as you get to the end goal, of doing the best for the patient, how you get there, whatever technology you use or whatever, that doesn't really matter as long as you get to the end goal. Now, saying that, there can be some hiccups with some EMRs and not some others, but it's all work in progress. I agree with you both on the telehealth. We have a platform that works well. That's not our EMR. They're separate. I want to keep it that way until now. 3-4 years from now, EMR.
You're going to see them.
Yeah, I already know of a couple that are already saying, "Hey, we've got this." I'm like, "You just made this up like now. Let's."
Right.
Yeah, it's not worth the headache.
It's not worth. It's not worth even trying to attempt it. I'd rather pay for this company. They just go document in the EMR, and then we'll deal with it down the road.
100%. And I can't think of a clinician that doesn't agree with you. Like, I can't think of one person right now that'd be like, no, I want a headache every time I type.
Even on the technology side, we're all in agreement. Like, everyone I've talked to, let's keep this separate. Like, let's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all on integration and in our building and stuff. Keep it separate. Like, let's get at this point. You know, we love new shiny technology, but
Of course.
what's going on right now, that's got to put to the wayside, and let's make everything work in this quote unquote new normal buzzword I'll use. Let's make everything work from there, and then let's bring the new shiny stuff on. Let's just try to get everybody working.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, unfortunately, there's facilities that are closed because they have no patients. I mean, where I worked, we were essentially pretty much shut down because there were no elective cases. That's now since done, but there's places all over the country where small rural hospitals are basically closed or closing up because they have no revenue coming in. And it's I'm not worried about technology. Let's worry about just getting back to full capacity, and then if it's a year, it's 2 years, then so be it. A global event just happened, or it's happening before our very eyes. A once in 100-year event.
Yes.
Your integration software can wait.
Exactly.
And I'm fine with it.
I'd rather have something that works well than something new. So I'm all about let's wait. So that's where I think most of us are, though.
Yeah. Well, I think to close this out, I wanted to give you guys a chance to first plug your podcast, which I'm heavily, and two, if there was anything from a clinician standpoint you want to tell people with all that's going on, is there something you want to convey to the masses? Since we started with Ben, Tom at first, Ben, you go first.
Well, I guess I'll give our little spiel that I normally do on our podcast because I knew that's what Tom was going to want anyway.
Yeah, he's really good at it. So I just let him do it. I've only done it once for everybody listening. I've done it once on the show because we decided to switch it up, and it was a train wreck. So really we just do it for fun now. If I do it first, it's just terrible. So.
Our podcast is Just Some Podcast for advanced practitioners, or Just Some Podcast. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Just Some Podcast. Our website's www.justsomepodcast.com. Our email's admin@justsomepodcast.com also. As far as parting words, I would say don't believe everything that you see on social media, and talk to your local primary provider or whoever it is, or if you do have questions about something. I would much rather someone come to me with a question and say, hey, do you believe this? Or, hey, is this legit? As opposed to just putting it out there as, oh, it's the gospel truth because this person who is a doctor of philosophy, but because he says doctor now, then that clearly is, outranks me. So then that must be the truth. So I would say that, and just keep being safe, wash your hands, and, take care of each other.
To build on what Ben said, the two things we know that have worked at preventing COVID, because there isn't really a cure. I shouldn't say there isn't a cure, right? There isn't going to be one, at least not anytime soon. The two things we do know, it's been proven prior to COVID, it's being proven again during COVID, hand washing and distance. Those are the two things that can keep you safe. All right. If you want to wear a mask for extra protection, I'm all for it, as long as you understand the limitations of the mask. Again, that's one of those false, if I was a real podcaster, I wouldn't hit my mic when I talk. But that false sense of security sometimes people get with masks, I don't want that to override the two pillars of prevention, which have been and will be distance and hand washing. As far as truth goes, here is some more truth. Nobody knows everything about this. All right. Even the experts don't know everything. Okay. But that would be a defining factor I would tell you to look for. Is if somebody goes, we don't know 100%, but this is the stuff we do know as of now. That person is probably the most up-to-date person you're going to talk to. If a person's telling you they know hands down how this is all working or something like that, they're selling you something. That's a good way to look at it. If they say, I know everything and here's why, that's a problem right there. Okay, so I would tell them just, and internally, I think everyone's got that. This guy's trying to sell me something. If you get that gut feeling, keep an open mind. Let's just put it that way. And I think if we can all step back from the medical side, the technology side, every side, and say we're working through this together. The minute someone's trying to put up a barrier, they're doing that to keep you away from somebody else. And that's what I see consistently with these conspiracy theories is they're trying to keep you away from some other information. Let's just all work together and being safe and honestly think of others. This isn't all about you. This isn't all about me. This is about making sure people that don't have an immune system, like I have a really good friend that is in the midst of chemotherapy. They can't defend themselves. So it is incumbent upon everybody around them to protect them. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to walk away from this. Even when this flattens, there's going to be that period where it's like you have to think about more than yourself when this is over. And so just remember those facts: distance, hand washing, keep an open mind, and think of more than yourself. And I think we'll do just fine.
It couldn't have said better. I guess to close out for me, from a tech standpoint, I would want everyone to put their phones down. Like, don't read everything. Like, I guess being in lockdown, I guess where I live, where I have more space, go outside. Go for a walk. Go enjoy. It's been, the weather here is getting a little warm, but go enjoy life that you can, Life, this is proving life is finite. We only have one of it,
and
it doesn't last long. And there are people out there who are losing their life over this. So appreciate what you have. Take their advice. I mean, hand wash. And also, side note, if you hand wash a lot, wear lotion. I figured that out because I hand wash like crazy. Why am I hand washing? I'm hand washing. So get some lotion, hands. Your missus will appreciate that. But
bold move for the technology guy to say put down technology.
It is a bold. And you know what?
Bold strategy.
It is.
Let's see if it pays off.
I mean, I love technology. I think it's great, but it's at the same time, I'm human.
Yeah.
I have a family. I'm saying, if I'm going to go in front of the altar here, that I need to put the technology down and go do things with them and go enjoy my surroundings and enjoy the backyard and do things. Go play golf. Go exercise and all kinds of stuff.
Not to interrupt you again, which I'm really good at, but one thing I guess
he is.
I am excellent at that. I guess one of the things that you just said, it just made it click in my head. Maybe we should address this real quick. Yes, this primarily affects people with underlying conditions. Yes, this primarily affects the elderly population. However, I can point to you multiple cases of one was a 25-year-old All-American lacrosse player, no comorbidities, in a coma, fighting for his life. I just saw before we started this podcast, I follow Zach Braff on Instagram because he and Donald Faison has a great new podcast about scrubs.
Listen, yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
One of apparently Zach Braff's friends, a very healthy, very young man, is fighting for his life, has lost a appendage due to, I'm assuming one of the things we're finding with younger people, you may not die of hypoxia, but you may have clotting issues. So they're having strokes, losing limbs. And that's one of the things I think it's also important for people to note. Death is not always the final factor, okay? Mm-hmm. They keep forgetting, they keep focusing on death. Well, guess what? 4 times as many people are going to end up in the hospital on vents or with serious conditions that require hospitalization. Mm-hmm. And that can include when they walk out of that hospital, they're not the same that they went in it. So they are overshadowing and trying to use, and again, we're going back to these people that are trying to pass off information. Well, it's only killed 60,000 people, which, first of all, if you say the word only in front of 60,000 dead, that should signal something right there.
Yeah.
but they are leaving out the 20%. You're right. 80% of people are going to get through this. I know people right now that have COVID and they're not enjoying it, but they're probably going to be fine. Okay. They have the classical mild symptoms that we talk about, and that does happen. But there are also people dying that are not elderly, that are not smokers, that don't have hypertension. There are people that are having strokes. They are losing limbs. And I have been an ICU nurse, and I will tell you, if you are on a vent for 7 to 14 days, it is not good. Yeah. It's not a great time. It's not a great time for your family. It's not a good time for you. And there will be physical repercussions. They might be limited, or you might get over them eventually, but you will not walk out of that hospital the same that you went into it. And that is one of the scary things for me as a provider. And I don't want to overstate or give out too much personal information, but my wife is a respiratory therapist in a major trauma university-backed hospital, literally on a COVID unit, taking care of and intubating these patients nightly. She's there right now. And if you don't think that I don't comprehend what could happen to us at any time, or what she could bring home, or what she could be exposed to, this isn't a hoax to me. Like, I see that bullseye, and it gets bigger every day. And so I think there's a personal, you work in the hospital and you're like, well, I'm a technology, but you are an integral part of how healthcare works, and we depend on you to take care of patients. So I think it's that blast in the face that we have that maybe these jerks on the internet don't. And it's real easy to be a keyboard warrior, I guess. It's real easy to be real confident over a television or a computer screen. So when you are looking at someone that's dying and you've done everything and they're still going to die, it's a way different message than, well, I read something on you, or I heard something on YouTube. Like, maybe that's why I don't care about the YouTube anymore. So, but you talking brought that all up. I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about the fact that it's not just death. People aren't just dying. People are getting way messed up from this beyond death. Yeah. And people don't talk about that part.
Well said. Actually, that's why and that's that's why. I say put technology out because it is finite. Because if something was happening to me and I was to be test positive, and no matter what, that's gonna be a life-changing experience, be it death or not death. But if I'm intubated or not, whatever, even if I have the mild symptoms, that's still life-changing. So I to close out, I would say just everyone go wash your hands and be safe and physically distant, and also check in on everybody, on your friends. Talk to people, call, Zoom, Skype, whatever you want to use.
We have the technology.
We have technology. We can make them better. We have technology to do all that kind of stuff. So I'll end it there. Thomas, Ben, thanks a lot for doing this. This is
Thank you, sir.
A lot of fun. You can find us at Tech Crossover. Email me, admin@techcrossover. I'm still in Instagram jail. Instagram, I'm coming for you. You know what this is about. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.